There's a couple points I want to bring up when you prepare for the ketogenic plan, okay? There's going to be a very short transition window, okay? Roughly between 2 to 5 days, right? It's not terrible, but you have to prepare for it. And if you're going through some major stress, for example, and you know you're overwhelmed, then of course you need to focus on that stress first before you start it, because you really want to be able to do this so you can really focus on it. And the more stress you have, the more cortisol you're going to have, and that might counter the progress. However, I'd say 50% of the people that I know that are going through major stress, they just jump right in, and all of a sudden they come out the other end losing weight, feeling good, their mood elevated, and it actually helps them. Other people, they have to kind of focus on the stress first. But the point is that there's a transition phase that could be a little bit uncomfortable for some people, okay, especially if you're not used to it. Because what you're doing is you're cutting your carbs down, okay? You're bringing your carbs down below 50 grams, and you're switching your cell's metabolism from sugar to fat fuel, okay? So you have all these biochemical enzymes that are changing over and they're adapting. However, your brain doesn't have to adapt. It's already adapted, but the rest of our body does have to adapt. So let me just explain. So if you were to cut down your carbs, like right now, okay, down below 50 grams, maybe down to 30 grams. I like to keep it down to 30 grams or even 20 grams. Your body might feel sluggish, but your brain would feel better, because what determines whether your brain runs on ketones or sugar, glucose, is what's going on in the blood. And so if you're not eating sugar, okay, if you're cut down carbs, then you're automatically going to start burning ketones, and that's what's going to feed the brain. If there's a combination of glucose and ketones in the blood, the brain will actually override and eat the ketones before the glucose, which is a really good thing. So your brain thrives on ketones. It likes ketones. And a little trick to make this transition a little bit easier is you could take some MCT oil, maybe through the day, like a tablespoon. If you have too much, you might have diarrhea. But if you have just a little bit, it's in the bloodstream. And then your brain is like, wow, I have energy. I feel good. So it's a good way to kind of get through this without many issues. Okay. Now we're up against old patterns, bad habits, snacking at night, eating carbs. Make it easy on yourself. Prepare. So that means get all the junk out of your house, junk food. Don't go to places where there's a lot of bad foods. Prepare your food of what you're going to eat, so you have a plan. It's kind of like a hidden step of kind of having the food ready, because if you don't organize and you just do it day to day and you run out of food and you don't have it there and you're hungry and you're tired and you're driving past, some restaurant that sells junk food, chances are you could go off the program. So I think it's important to prepare. I think restaurants are the problem, especially they bring you the bread, they offer the dessert, there's people around you, especially if you're socializing with friends, you slip into this whole thing where you don't really think through things. This happens with holidays and birthday parties and social events. So you want to make it easy on yourself. You want to just really evaluate your environment and your foods and make sure there's nothing in the house that you can fall back on if you have a weak willpower. This whole exercise in doing this is really going to help your willpower. It's going to help you say no and sticking to your word and keeping your integrity in with yourself. This is going to be extremely healthy for you. And so people always say, well, I'm going to reward myself with a donut. That's going to be a better reward. Now, of course, your receptors are so probably geared to increasing dopamine, which is kind of a pleasure hormone from eating sugar. We have to override that. So one thing I would recommend too, to make it easy in this transition, is to prepare some keto treats, okay, if you need them. So that way you have an alternative. You have something that tastes almost like junk food and sugar, and like you can do cookies and candies and all sorts of things, right? Brownies and cakes, all keto without sugar, but you're making them with sugar alcohols. So the recipe is slightly different. Tastes just like, junk food, but you have that if you need it. So that way you don't have to deprive yourself. When you do this transition, okay, 2 to 5 days, what you may notice, especially if you're doing intermittent fasting too, is you might be hungry, okay? You might feel dizzy. You might have cravings for carbs. But realize this, if you stick to it for just a little bit longer, okay, what's going to happen is your body's going to start burning more of your own fat, which is a whole new concept. And when you do that, what you're going to notice, the first thing is your hunger is going to go away. You're no longer going to be hungry. So you can go for a longer period of time without being hungry. Your cravings are going to go away. Just think about what that's going to do to your ability to stick to it. It's going to be incredible. So we just have to overcome this few days of transitioning, okay? To make it easy on yourself, in the morning, you can do bulletproof coffee. So you're adding MCT oil or butter, add more fat to that coffee so you're not hungry, okay? So you can go longer. The meals that you eat, you add more fat at the end of the meal. And you might say, well, if I add more fat, then I'm going to slow down my weight loss because the body's going to burn those calories and not my own calories. That's true. But our goal is not to lose weight initially. Our goal is to adapt to the point where we can go longer and longer without eating, so we can get into ketosis for real. And we're using that fat as a crutch to speed things up, because if there's fat there, the body will use that to turn that into ketones, okay? And fat's very satisfying. So it's just a strategy that you'll do initially, more fat, and then once you're adapted, you can kind of back off on the fat. But I always recommend more fat, especially in the beginning. What makes you go into ketosis is not more fat, it's the absence of carbs and sugar. So remember that. The lower you bring your sugars down, the faster this is going to happen, okay? So some people just bite the bullet and go cold turkey and just, they just have like one meal a day and they have like 0 carbs. And boy, in 2 days, they're burning fat and they've gotten through it. They rip that Band-Aid. Other people sort of do it with higher carbs when it just takes longer. So it really depends on what kind of person you are. How to prevent the keto flu, keto rashes, fatigue, very simply. Make sure you up your sea salt and electrolytes and B vitamins through the nutritional yeast. I would recommend that. Try to get the unfortified. But the point is, if you have the B vitamins, you have the electrolytes, heavy on the potassium, and sea salt, you won't have any of these symptoms at all. Bad breath. People talk about, oh, you're going to get bad breath. I can't say I've never, but rarely do I ever hear anyone having bad breath doing the healthy version of the ketogenic plan. It's when you do the unhealthy version that you might get bad breath, but it's not going to be a problem. So get your courage up, jump in, and follow my recommendations, and you'll be fine.